Okay, we'll get started. Let me. So we done all the deployment release pipeline, right? But we have to do few more things as well because, of course, we done with the release and build and releases. That's absolutely fine. And then we have me. Let me navigate to my here. So I want to start the PowerShell, but before I start the PowerShell, I want to show some other options as well. Okay. So let's go to guys. You can hear me, right? Hello.
Yes, Purna, we can hear you.
Okay.
Yes, we can.
So let's go to our Azure DevOps.
Sir, are we going to cover Docker on Windows or Linux? Windows containers or Linux containers?
I can go to basically right now. AK is having a fully support for Linux. Fully support for Linux. Of course, it supports the Windows as well, but there are some issues. So that's what Microsoft is officially telling. And also, most of the Docker C is based on the Linux. Okay, the most support is only for the Linux. The Windows is still maturing, but of course, we are not starting now. Docker and Kubernetes. We will be starting after the PowerShell. Okay.
Okay. That time,
Yeah,
sir, shall we our sessions?
We will talk about it, Manoj, when we will come to Docker and Kubernetes.
Okay.
So I still want to show some more features available. So generally, see, in any technology or tool, right, you will have thousands of features, but there will be some 100 or 200 which are must and you should know, and rest will be it is based on the project, and most of the times you will not be using it. It's like this, right? You learn Java, .NET, but in our lifetime we will be using probably 1% of the features available. That's how it works also. So that's the reason I wanted to cover all the important things where each and every project definitely gets it. Okay. Okay. The one what I wanted to show you is, let's go to project settings. So we created one self-hosted agent, or we created a deployment groups, right? Okay. So let's go to our deployment groups. So that's under pipelines and then deployment groups, right? Let me. So under deployment group, let's go to our demo deployment group QA. Okay. So right now I have only one server in my deployment group, but this is not the reality, right? As I told you, we create the deployment group to make our release process easier. That means you will be having, let us say, 10 servers in your QA environment. All 10 are web servers. I can't simply go ahead and see. We are doing the automation. If you still ask someone to make 10 different release pipelines for 10 different servers, that's not a good idea. So that's the reason they created this deployment group. What you can do, you can go and register as many servers as possible to your deployment group. So then what happens when I mention this deployment group in my release pipeline, right? When you trigger the create release, it will deploy your code to all the servers. So you don't need to do that one. That is one option. Let me go ahead and okay. What I do before I explain it, let me create one more server. Okay, I haven't done that one. It may take another 15 minutes, but it will give you a comfort. Okay. So let me go to portal.azure.com. Use my email ID. So what's the group name we given? I just would like to, so demo web QA, right? I'll say QA1, this server name. Let's go and create a virtual machine. These are still running. Sir, I wanted to stop them. So I use the same resource group what I'm using. So these are basically for if you learn the cloud administration, right? These are basically for the grouping of your resources and for the building purpose as well. Okay. And my virtual machine name I want to give is, this is a demo web QA, right? I'll give it as a, right, where is this? Yeah, I can move it. See, I generally keep forget because I don't give much attention to these things. So this is a demo web QA, and I want to name it as a 1. Okay, just for a differentiation. And let it be US Central, because it contains this region contains all the resources for a free subscription. And then I'm not making any changes. I'm just making change to my server version. Guys, remember we are doing the DevOps to ensure that you do error-free deployments. So when you are doing the DevOps, you need to ensure that all your operating systems and servers having the same configuration. That's the funda you need to tell your management as well. It's okay. You can have a 8 GB RAM or 16 GB RAM. It doesn't matter. That only affects the performance. But if you are using, let us say, Windows Server 2016 in your QA environment, it should be the same thing in your production and other environments as well. Otherwise, you will again run into same problems. So this is the one of the issues that we trying to solve using DevOps. Of course, how we solve it using infrastructure as code. Means I don't want someone to create virtual machines manually like this. We can use the ARM templates or the Terraform or Ansible or Chef to create these environments. The way we are creating the build and release pipeline, they can create the scripts to trigger the pipelines. So that if let us say tomorrow I created the script to create a virtual machine. Tomorrow, if someone else has to do it, he can take the script and change the name and execute it, so that the configurations will not change. Okay. Now, let me select the size. There might be some free trial issues. Let me change to US East S. So, okay. The moment I change to East ES, because I'm using a free subscription, right? I have some limitations and the number of cores or servers that use in a particular region. Okay. So it's okay. I'm okay with 2 CPS and 7 gig RAM because it will be faster, but I'm not going to do any, I mean, this is how you can select one way. And then give the username. I'll give the same username what I'm using. Okay. And I also allow HTTP S and HTTP as well. That's it. Now I'm not going to make any changes in the rest of the things. I'm not giving any tags as well. So the validation is done. That means I did not miss any configuration stuff that's created. So while it is doing, let's talk about some of this. Now what I do, so what we done for creating a deployment group, once you give the name deployment group, then for the first time you got that script, right? And then we taken that script, log into the server, and we went to the PowerShell and we executed it. Okay, that's all. So I'm going to do the same thing for this server as well. Once I'm done it, then I can see 2 servers in my deployment group. So in my release pipeline, since my deployment group is already attached, when I trigger the release, it will deploy the code to both the servers. So this is how you can reduce your work. And there is another advantage as well. I will be showing it just now. First, let it finish. Let me close this. Okay. So, anyways, I need to wait for it. I have to log in. Should take 1 or 2 minutes. So another one I wanted to cover is in your actual environments, right? It's just not a web server, right? So on web server, you might be deploying only your front-end applications, and you might be having some APIs as well. And your architect or your infra architect says they don't keep these APIs on the same server because it will reduce the performance of your server. Then what you do? You will deploy these APIs on different server. Of course, you are deploying to IIS only. It is a .NET. So we have two different categories. One web server category, another one is API server category. So, but you will be using deployment groups only. So what I'm going to do, I use the same deployment group because this deployment group is belonging to my QA environment. This is how I represent all the servers part of my deployment group QA are belonging to my QA server, so that no one else in other teams can go ahead and use my deployment QA group for their dev environment or the production environment. So this is clearly categorizing back. Okay. Now under the QA environment, again I want to have a different categories: web server category and then API server category. But how you will categorize? That's what I'm going to show that one as well. Okay. So once you're done, right, that means you are ready for your any production version because you don't have more than that one. Okay. Let me refresh it if it is done or not. They're not done. So anyways, it will be doing okay. Now what I do, I am under deployment group, right, and I'm under demo deployment QA. Let me go ahead and click on register. Okay. So the moment you click on register, and this is what you got it when the first time you were doing the deployment group creation. Okay, since that was the first time, when you create the deployment group itself, it has shown action. This is the second time you have to click on the register. Again, the same process. You have to take this script. So you can check this. You can read this script once we do the PowerShell session. But because if you try to understand now, right, you will not understand. It's a waste of time. Okay. Of course, if you know already PowerShell, that's okay. Let's copy this script to clipboard. Okay. Now let me see if the VM is being created or not. The last step is going on, it seems. Demo web QM. So 4 minutes. Right? Generally, if you are doing it from the script side, uh, the request directly go to the underlying software. It may take a little time. Now it is happening from the your portal. That means on the HTTPS, right? Let's see. It should be completing. Huh? No, the status is your deployment is under the last one is so it is still showing me this one. Everything has to be green. Maybe it is doing some post creation activities. Refresh. Let's give it a minute. Basically, when we are hurried, it will not finish. taking more time. Okay, cool. My VM has been created. Let's go to source and then take the IP address. So this is how I access. This is my public IP address. Let's copy. Let's go to sorry. So go to run and say mstsc remote desktop. Paste it here. Connect. First time, so dot backslash and my user ID, then password. Number. Okay, done. Accept. I'm good to go now. So anyways, I'm not deploying anything. All I want to do is now, I want to make this server part of my deployment group. Let's go to PowerShell. Search for PowerShell and run this PowerShell as an administrator. Okay, so I copied it, right? Let's paste it. Minimize. Let me go to deployment group. Copy the script. That's it. That's it. Huh? Pet, yeah, I will take it. Let me run this. Anyways, it will take a minute, right? Now I will go and take personal access token. I am just thinking because I need to close this one. Oh, you mean to say this one? No. Let me. I did not open another tab. That's okay. dev.azure.com. The session is there. Okay, I don't need to go inside. I can directly go here. Personal access token. And then I would say create a new token. So this is a QA1 website. I'll give any name. That's not a problem. It belongs to my organization. Let me give it 90 days and let me give full access. Then create. In the background, it's already created. You see QA1. Let's take this token. Copied. Go to my server. Okay, press enter for. Yeah, you don't see, I guess. Let me. Sorry. Enter. Sorry, let me select it. Sometimes it won't work. Let me do some activity here. Or even my pattern is not copied. Let me again copy it. Copy.
And have a single pack for
We can have it. We can. So I'm forgetting to copy. You can try this because this is having no link with any other stuff, right? We are dynamically creating it. You see it because we are giving whatever the name we are thinking, because we are not giving any user ID password. This is nothing but your some hashed version of your token. Okay, press enter for what man it is. Enter is not working. Yeah, that's okay. It work. Now let me paste it. I think I need to again paste this here. Copy this. Let me do so like this. Let me go to right click will not work. This one will work. Still not. Guys, these are the typical issues. Don't worry. That you will get it when you are accessing any virtual machine. Control C.
Reduce the size of
Now it worked. So generally, to avoid these issues, what we do when you are connecting to the virtual machines, right? You have some options. You can attach your disks as well. So in such case, it will work properly. Okay, it is saying, see, there is a option called enter deployment group tags for agent. I'm going to explain that one. Right now, I'm not entering tags here. I will enter directly from the portal. Okay, press enter for now. And it is saying enter user account, NT authority system. Yes, use it. That's it. My agent is been created. That means if I go back to my portal, let's close this deployment group, right? Now I can close this one as well. Let me refresh this. Means I'll go back and come here. So deployment groups, and ours is a demo deployment QA. So now I have two servers part of my QA deployment group. So the first one you see, the release one is already used for my server one. The second server, I haven't got any deployment. So when you now you go back to your pipelines, .NET DevOps demo. So next week, right, when I'm explaining the PowerShell, I will spend some 5 minutes because I'll do the IIS setup from home and then directly click on the release. Then you can see how it is deploying to different things. Now you go to your releases, right, and edit your release definition. QA, right? Let's go to QA and go to your agent. So this is where we given the deployment group. Okay, I left this tags empty, and now you see two matching targets in demo deployment QA group. So that means when I run this job, it will deploy to both of the servers. Now the next step, what I was saying, okay, in the real-time environments, you have the group of servers for the API deployment, group of servers for your front-end deployment, and there might be some other stuff like that. Okay, now since right now I have let us say 10 servers in my deployment group. So how to ensure that one release, so one agent, we have multiple agents, right? One agent is deploying to web servers. Another agent is deploying to the API servers. So how you manage? You can go and add tags. So before that, let me come here. If you go to the required tags here, right? I don't have any tags here. If you see suggested tags, because I haven't created anything. Now I go ahead and create tags here, deployment group. So I'll mention couple of servers as a web servers, couple of servers as a API servers. I'll add a tag called web. That's it. And I add a tag to this as a API. That's it. Now let's save it. That's it. So these are the advantages of your tags. Okay. So you are further categorizing your servers available in your QA environment deployment group. Now what I do, if I go to my job here, so I'll go and say web. Okay, that's it. So I say you can say deploy to subset of targets in deployment group using tags. For example, WebDB. Now I only have the web server. Let us say if you have another API, if how you do, you will go and add another job, right? And then here, hmm, where here, yeah. So why we are categorizing these things? Because so if you see the Selenium test, what we done, we created one solution, I mean one project for Selenium separately, another solution for your regular web development. We have the categorization. Since I am doing the demonstration, I am just doing even Selenium test case execution on the same server. But generally, it will run a different server. But how do you ensure that? And here also, I want to say, okay, this IAS deployment is having only web application code. I want to deploy this one to some 1, 2, 3, 4, 5 servers. And I have another 6 to 10 servers, another 5 servers. I want to use those 5 servers for only for the API. But what this IAS deployment is containing, only my web application artifacts. So my other agent will have my what do you say? Sorry, this is not the agent, right? I need to add a deployment group. Okay, let's remove this. So how do you use how do you create a deployment group from the pipelines? Okay, you will go ahead and add it. We will show it because I want to continue to the pipelines. Then the way we given the web, right? I'll give a QA, and that QA deployment group contains some artifacts for your another project. Let us say APIs. Okay, so for the time being, let me save it. Okay, because to demonstrate that I have to configure that server as well. Okay. So I'll pause this execution for the time being. I will continue this execution for 10 minutes, probably takes 10 minutes on Monday. Then we can close this. Okay. So with that, I'll just let me close this all these VMs. So I just would like to continue with the PowerShell. Okay. Guys, this is also very important stuff, PowerShell. But the good thing is, most of the times you will not be required to use PowerShell when you are using Azure DevOps. Okay, because when you are using a VSTS or TFS, right, many tasks were not available. Let us say to work with the file systems, or to work with IIS, or to work with any OS related stuff, or Azure cloud related. You do not have the tasks availability, nothing but your extensions available. But with the introduction of Azure DevOps, right, for everything there is a task available. That means you want to work with the IIS, you have the task. You want to work with the folders on your server, you have the task. You want to change some permissions on the OS, you have the task. So everything is a task. But in some cases, probably you may need to use PowerShell. Let us say you want to change some folder permission from read only to some write only, or you want to give make some folder as a share. I'm just giving some examples for that kind of stuff, right? You don't need to go ahead and add a task and do it. Of course you can do it, but you can do it using a PowerShell as well, because PowerShell is a very simple one and easy to use as well. Of course you need to learn it. Okay. So for such kind of reasons, I wanted to cover PowerShell as well. Of course, if you are working any complex engagement, there might be some scenarios where you may need to use this as well. At that point of time, you don't need to struggle. Let's understand. I'm not sure how many you guys used PowerShell. That's the reason I'm starting from scratch. Okay. So, so I'm using Windows 10, right? And then if you're using, you might be using some servers again or a Windows 8 or something. So for these operating systems, you already have the Windows PowerShell built in. You don't need to worry. That's the reason I'm saying Windows 7 Service Pack 1 onwards, we have this PowerShell available. If you're using older version, of course, if you're using older version, you will not be able to use .NET or Java. Okay, so that question will not arise, but I just want to simply cover it. Okay, so you will get this PowerShell built in. That's how I'm going to run and then using PowerShell. Okay, so basically this is built on .NET. The underlying technology for the PowerShell is a .NET. Okay, so that's the reason. Let us say if you think that you do not have some command available in PowerShell, or if you want to create some reusable components, you can go ahead and create in .NET and import into your PowerShell. But that's very advanced. I don't think you will get such kind of opportunity because PowerShell is mature like anything. So you will have most of the stuff. But in case if you are working for any product development where you think that some of the things are not available, or some of the things you want to combine and create one reusable component, still you can do that in .NET and convert this one as a PowerShell command. Okay, that's what I'm mentioning. And the other advantage, as I told you, using PowerShell, you can make or do configuration changes for your operating system at kernel level as well, and you can work with web servers, file systems. And another beauty is now the way Azure DevOps is getting wider adoption across the industry. Even PowerShell is also getting momentum. The reason till last year, until the introduction of .NET Core, right, PowerShell can work only with the Windows operating system. Means it can manage only Windows. Now it manages even Linux and Mac as well, because earlier it was developed in .NET. Now the latest versions, it is developed on .NET Core as well. That means it can work for multi-platforms. So now the people started using PowerShell for some companies for even Linux and Mac administration as well. Okay, so I'll give you one simple example. We have the Visual Studio. Now there is a Visual Studio Code. You see many of the scripting people like AngularJS or React.js, people are using now like Python, Node.js. All these people are using Visual Studio Code. The reason all Microsoft products are easy to use, UI based and easy to use. You don't need to struggle a lot to use any of their products. And I see in many companies, even Angular desktop based applications or web applications, React, everybody is using Visual Studio Code. And I'm not suggesting for the .NET because uh, Visual Studio is a fantastic platform. Everything is in. See, they created tools to make your productivity much bigger. If you are going to use a Visual Studio Code for your .NET, your productivity gets reduced because .NET requires a lot of extensions, and you need to install those extensions manually in your Visual Studio Code. If it is Angular or something, it's only one, so you don't need to worry about it. So that's why PowerShell is becoming our de facto standard. You will see in the coming months or years. And then, as I told you, it will work with any of your file systems or IaaS or operating systems. So these are all some of the features and some terminology. So when you are using a PowerShell, right, you don't call it as a PowerShell commands. So when you use a term called commands, right, then that gives an impression that you not worked on PowerShell. Okay, so you basically call it as a CMD-lets or command-lets. So you can see that one. CMD-lets means even in your documentation also you see CMD-lets. Okay, so you can call it as a command-let or CMD-lets. Whatever the way you are comfortable. Use this term when you are using for PowerShell. Okay. it doesn't make any problem, but that gives you, I mean, that gives some impression to the other people. Okay. Now, as I told you, it will manage many things like IAS and everything. So when you are first time using PowerShell, probably some modules may not be available. You can install those modules in your PowerShell environment. We will show you, I mean, how to install them. It's easy. Okay. And then the other, some of the advantages, as I told you, we can use this PowerShell in your pipelines as well. Okay, to make any changes to your file systems or IAS. Of course, I don't use PowerShell for any IAS management. I have everything is available in my IAS web deployment manage task. Okay, and there are many other tasks as well on IAS. Okay, so some of the features. One is you can, so when you are using in pipelines, that means you are basically doing something on the some remote machine, or from your laptop also you can access some remote machine and you can do. So that is one remoting activity that uses PowerShell. And transactions, I mean, these are some terminology. So whether you know this terminology or don't know it, there is no problem. But again, this is an impression. Okay, because when you go for interviews, right, people ask not only comments, right, what are the different features you know in PowerShell. But now the problem, you know how to work with PowerShell, you can execute the commands, but you don't know what are those. So people will not ask you the another question. And then background jobs, the way you schedule jobs, right? You write Windows scripts like a DOS commands for creating jobs, and you schedule them using some Windows scheduler or cron jobs or anything. There are a number of things, right? In the same way, you can create a PowerShell script and you can run it as a job as well, because it is just another job kind of stuff. It's a script. And you can work with your files. That means you can share your files like the way FTP, because you can change the permissions of your folders or files, or you can move the files, like all the activities that you do with any programming language, working with folders or something or operating system, you can do the same thing with PowerShell. But the beauty is you don't need to remember a lot syntax here. It's a very limited. So I'll just would like to. So there are thousands of commands, right? So there are some tips as well to easily search for a command or identify a command. I'll be showing it in the next slide. Okay, for the time being, let's go ahead and run some, I mean, 1 or 2 commands for your familiarity. Of course, we've been running the script, but that's a different story. Let's go ahead and sorry, I don't know that name. Let's go and search for it. PowerShell, and I always like to run it as administrator. So the first one I would like to show is a get service, right? Basically, when you go to, you are having a number of services running your system, right? So the simple thing is that I just clicked on the tab. That's why it has given the intelligence. But I don't prefer to use this window to do my scripting, because since we've been used to the IDEs, right? Like Eclipse or Visual Studio, where the moment you type something, it will give the intelligence. You don't need to remember. I want the same thing. Okay, so we have that facility as well. We will look into that one. So let's say get services. Sorry. Get service basically. So these are all the list of the services that are running on my laptop. So how I can see, I can go to services here. So these are all the services that are running on my laptop. So and so you can apply all the search criteria, all that stuff. Okay. Today I'm not getting into the in-depth comments. Just want to give the feel of your comments. Okay. So I have a number of services running on this, right? So if I want to select a subset of services, so let's say First, let me clear this. I'll say get service, and then I want to take with all the services that are with SQL. Okay, I'll say star. So this is our main. There is no difference, you see, the way you use such wildcard commands in any other programming language. In the same way, you use it here as well. So it's easy to learn as well. So this is how you search for some services using commands. I will be getting into detailed commands, and I will share the list of commands what I have here so that we can easily go ahead and practice it. Okay. But as I told you, we have hundreds and thousands of commands, right? How we will remember them? So for everything, I mean, what Microsoft done it because they want to make it very easier. They made this naming convention even for the commands as well, so that you can easily go and search for it. If there is no naming convention, no criteria, you cannot search for anything, right? So they made it as well. So let me go to the next slide. So basically, all PowerShell commands, right? It's a combination. So you have a one word and then hyphen another word. Okay. The first word is always verb, means get, put, such kind of stuff, or start, stop. These are, and the next one is a noun or pronoun, just your name kind of stuff. So that is a very fundamental aspect. Okay. And I would say, if I want to work with I want to know all the details of my IAS, I can start with get, then hyphen, and then I'll start with I'll get, and then I want to start, you start with start, and then out, stop, set, new, update. So this is how you can remember all the CRUD operations, update, delete, new, etc., and your search operations, start, stop. Okay, be it IaaS, be it Azure Cloud, be it your file system, everything will be like this. It starts with any one of these words. Let us say if you want to create some folder, how you say, it will start with a new word. Probably it will be with a new item. So the moment you say new hyphen I, it will get it. If you want to work with IaaS, new hyphen II, you will get it. And if you want to work with some Azure Cloud resources, so using PowerShell, you can manage all the features that are available on the Azure Cloud. Okay. And then if you want to start some VMs, you say start hyphen, and probably it will start with all the Azure services start with agent. Okay. So this is the, so they given the naming convention. It's easy to remember. Okay. So we will be seeing some of the command, then that's where you realize. Okay. So I wanted to categorize like this so that it will be easier for you. Since I've been doing it for years, right? I know how it starts. Okay. And what else we will be learning? Because for any programming language or for any scripting language, right? It's not about how many commands you know. It's about the syntax, like the language, like a grammar. In the same way, you need to know the syntax. Once you know the syntax, then it's all about playing with your programming language. That's the reason I'm going to cover the data types, and then the variables, and then your loops, and then conditions. So these are the must and should things that anyone should know for any learning any programming language or any skill. So here also I'm covering all those things in depth, and I will cover some of the commands. So we have some commands, and also if as a programmer, you know, there will be some built-in variables as well. Our user defined variables where we will go and say username, password, etc. Built-in variables. Let us say getting OS version, getting a SQL Server version. In the same way, there are built-in variables for your PowerShell as well. So I actually made a list of all those variables. I will share it with you. I will be using one or two variables for the demonstration. I give it to you. You can go and practice. Okay, because you will be using those variables in your scripting. So, and we already created a deployment group. It has given the script, right? You can verify all these items. Once you learn this PowerShell, learning that scripting and or understanding the script is just a 1 minute. Okay. Okay. Now, as I told you, I would like to use IDE to do my PowerShell scripting. Either is it running a simple command or is it running for some complex script. I would like to have a IDE so that I have a IntelliSense. Okay, so right now we used PowerShell command prompt, right? So even for PowerShell, we have a IDE as well. That is a PowerShell ISC. Okay, I will show it now right now. So using PowerShell ISE, which is a integrated development environment, you can debug. You have the IntelliSense. You have all helping activities the way you have in your Visual Studio. Okay. So this is how it looks. Let me open that PowerShell ISE. Let's out from here, and then let's go and sorry, not right now. Let's go and search for PowerShell. So you have this Windows PowerShell and then Windows PowerShell ISE. This is the one we should be using it for our scripting purpose. Okay, I'm just running it as an administrator. That's why it is asking me this. So the bottom one is what you are seeing your PowerShell, and the top one where you can go ahead and use it for the scripting. So you have a list of commands for your benefit as well, and you can search for it. I would say, so you see all the IAS related, and then if I say some files, you can see all the file related stuff. Okay, so we'll be using this one for some time. And here also you have the IntelliSense. Let us say I'll say new, right, and click on tab. Sorry, new hyphen. See, the moment I say new hyphen, I got all the things that are required. So I'll be using this one for demonstrating this PowerShell scripting and executing commands. So we will also work with Azure and your file systems as well. So that will make you comfortable to work with PowerShell, since you know all the syntaxes and how to work with and how to debug. And when you get some activity, it's a logic, right? Work is nothing but a logic. You know the syntax, then you apply your logic. Okay, guys, that's it from me for today. So we'll continue this session on Monday. Probably take 2 sessions, complete sessions to cover PowerShell. Once that is done, then we cut into the ARM templates or Dockers and Kubernetes. Because to learn ARM templates, again I'm telling ARM templates is only basics. I will show you the structure, how you can work with ARM templates, because you are from the app development. But I just want to give the feel, because for learning ARM template you need to know the PowerShell. Otherwise you cannot understand the structure. Okay, guys, any questions? For which one? A new mission. Because if I want to deploy, I want to use this deployment group only for the web servers, I don't need it. But if there is another project API, I want to deploy them to some different. How do I categorize? So I'll go and give the tag. But how does it know which artifact it has to deploy on the QA? Yes, 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 yes. I will be showing. Because my mission is not ready, right? So that's the reason. Yeah, we will cover it. So we will spend another 15 minutes on Monday. We will close that one, and then I will show some other tips as well, and then we will go to the PowerShell command execution. Okay. And
I have a question. Like when you are doing a deployments, you had created 2 servers. Like one is for IAS and another is for the API, right? So for the QA environment.
Correct.
Generally, before this process starts, we need to get these kind of details from the architect, right? Like, architect and the infrastructure guys should provide all this information for us. Then only we can write a script to do a deployments, right?
Yeah, you are right. So it works like this, Rakesh. Let us say in your organization there is no infrastructure automation, right? What happens? Some Azure cloud administrator will create a VM and give it to you. Okay, and then you will go ahead and add that machine to your deployment. Okay.
So we will be the final person to judge based on our load, and we need to go with how many VMs. We are the final person to finalize this part. Like we don't have any.
No, Rakesh. You are a DevOps engineer or a DevOps lead or an architect. Okay, based on your experience. Okay, you are responsible to ensure your environments are working well, and you are able to deploy your applications or databases to the different servers as required. Who is doing this capacity? Okay, this capacity estimation will be done by your combination, your solution architect or technical architect along with your infrastructure architect, because you are not part of the development team, right? You don't know how they work. You don't know what functionality is there. You don't know who is the user base. You are a guy here who is managing their environments in an automated fashion. If they say they want five servers in the web server, you go and add 5 web servers because you are given those 5 servers by someone.
Yeah, thanks, Parna.
Yeah. Okay, guys. If there are no questions, let's catch up again on Monday. So I will be talking more and more scenarios along with these PowerShell and Dockers and Kubernetes as well. So please try to attend the classes. Yeah.
Yeah. In as a part of project members creation, so once we create a project and when we add members, no, so when we log in with that particular ID, it is asking password.
Where?
In organization settings, we add some users, no?
Correct.
Organization.
Correct.
So when we try to log in with that particular user, so it is asking password. Which password we have to use? Password it is asking. So we did not set any password.
No, you did not set. What I did, let us say how I added the user. I use some valid email ID, right? Let us say purnachandra.k@hotmail.com. So that's my email ID, and I use that. Let us say you given me your email ID, manoj@hotmail.com. Okay,
Yeah.
I use that email ID to add that user to my Azure DevOps project. You have to use your email ID and your password.
Okay, my Hotmail password, is it right?
Yes. So you whatever the email you given to me, hotmail.com, manoj@hotmail.com. So you have your password, right? You have to use.
Okay. So with Hotmail password, I will be able to log in. Is it
Log
right?
into your Azure DevOps based on the permissions what I given.
Okay. Thank you.
Okay, guys. So as promised, I am stopping at 9 o'clock for the comfort of everyone. Okay, we'll continue on Monday. Have a good day and have a good weekend.